So, hi everyone, welcome. I am Michael Hirshorn with Mebel Transforming Furniture. We are all about a future of furniture that is sustainable and circular. There are incredible amount of fascinating things we want to talk about in just an hour today. So let's jump right in. Welcome to Cool Furniture, Happier Planet, Smart Business, introducing a new generation of circular New York City furniture businesses. We, Mebel, have produced this as ReDesign Week, 3 webinars, which is a new track within Refashion Week NYC, exploring creative solutions to our massive furniture and design waste problem. Our partners, we'd really like to thank the organizers of Refashion Week NYC. That's the Sanitation Foundation and Donate NYC, who are committed to bringing New Yorkers together to pursue a zero waste vision in which style and sustainability go hand in hand. So tune into Refashion Week events, see the link in the chat. This is the second ReDesign Week webinar this week, and I'm honored to be joined by 3 leaders of young or youngish New York City-based companies that are reinventing the very definition of what it means to be in the furniture business. All 3 companies reflect change in action towards a more sustainable and a just future. So you can read a lot about them through their bios, which are in the chat. First, quick introductions now. We'll be coming back to interview them in a minute. Phantila Phataraprasit, she's the co-founder and co-CEO of Sabai. Then Conor Coghlan is the co-founder and co-CEO of Hoek. And Ilyse Kaplan is president and chief operating officer of Feather. And today we'll explore, as we mentioned, new business models in the industry that embed circularity at the very core of what it means in each company's DNA, value system, business model. So a quick 101, what do we mean when we talk about circularity? I know some of you in this webinar are very familiar with it. Some of you are newcomers. This could take up the whole hour. Here's a 101. Take a look at the chart. What do we mean when we talk about designing things with principles of the circular economy as the operating principles of a furniture business? So to understand the circular future, let's first take a look at the current linear system. That's the graphic on the left. We live in a world, see this graphic, in which the economic system follows take, make, waste, or take, make, dispose logic. We extract, right now, the dominant economic system in our world is to extract finite resources and to make products that are then used and largely used not to their full potential. And then these products are thrown away, generating tremendous waste and pollution, depleting resources. Meantime, I don't have to tell you, a lot going on in our world suggests that this linear economic model just isn't working for the environment or for people or for business. So how can we transform our throwaway world into a sustainable and what we call regenerative, explain that in a few minutes, paradigm? That's where the circular economy comes in. Note the graphic on the right. It's a model that incorporates the natural world's cyclical models, keeping resources in use as long as possible, and then in its vision, reincorporating these resources to help regenerate the earth at the end of a product's useful life. In super shorthand, the circular economy is based on 3 fundamental principles. Let's eliminate waste and pollution. Let's keep products and materials in use, and let's regenerate ecosystems. So we at Mebel Transforming Furniture, we're excited to announce the release of our circular design glossary specific to furniture and furnishings in the coming weeks. There's also a link in the chat. You can sign up for a sneak preview, and then you'll be notified when it comes out in a couple of weeks. We're developing this glossary with the Sustainable Furnishings Council. And also, if you're looking for other great resources to dive deeper into what is the circular economy, we strongly recommend the website of the Ellen MacArthur Foundation. Our 3 presenters today then, they all lead companies that are exemplar of this new generation of furniture business that prioritizes circular principles, so that they emphasize, in plain English, priorities such as reducing waste, using healthier materials, making furniture a lot easier to repair or to return and or to move with you to your next home, furniture that's high quality and affordable and lasts a long time. Let's jump in. So Phantila, you're up first.
Hi.
I'm going to interview each of the three. Hi, Phantila.
Hi,
So,
Michael.
Phantila is the co-founder and co-CEO of Sabai. Sabai is beautiful, sustainable furniture for you and for the earth. They say feel confident that your furniture doesn't sacrifice your values. From the big picture to the nuts and the bolts, Sabai makes better furniture for you and for the planet. Phantila, tell us about that.
Yeah, so like you mentioned, Michael, the furniture industry obviously has a huge impact on the environment, and our mission is really to reduce that impact and also to make sustainable living accessible. And so understanding that growing demographic of people really do want to purchase sustainable products and purchase products that align with their values. And for us specifically, we're addressing that demographic that oftentimes can't afford to buy products that are sustainable. And so producing products that try to balance all of those things. And then also in terms of sustainability, take a comprehensive perspective and approach to that, and not just doing one-off things, but trying to look at our impact as a whole, whether that's materials, manufacturing, shipping, and then also designing from the onset for our repair and resale programs, and making sure that from the onset the programs are designed with life extension or end of life solutions in mind. And I can dig into those two different programs a little bit further, but we launched those actually January of last year under the umbrella of what we call the Sabai standard. And so the first is a repair program where we've designed our products to be flat packed and assemblable, which of course is convenient in terms of moving and shipping, but also lends itself to a repair program where, if we have had customers whose dogs have decided to rip up the arm of their sofa for whatever reason, and instead of having to get the whole piece replaced or reupholstered, which is oftentimes really expensive and cumbersome, you can actually buy a new set of arms from us or a new set of legs. And so allowing people to extend the life of their products that way. And then also Sabai Revive, which is our owned resale channel, where we guarantee to our customers if they need to move or get rid of their sofa for whatever reason, or a furniture product, we'll take it back, facilitate a resale, and they'll get a commission on that resale price. So along the lines of waste, just making sure that our products never end up in landfills.
So you mean that arm on that yellow sofa, if it gets busted or chewed up, is detachable, and I can order the identical one to replace it and keep the sofa, as opposed to reckoning with what do I do with this now?
Exactly.
Wow. So tell us a little more about the concept that sustainability, circularity is a comprehensive vision for the entirety of the company and for the entirety of what you call the life cycle of your sofas. Like, how does that play out in real life?
Yeah, so for us, it's looking at the materials, so using materials that are recycled, upcycled, non-toxic. Toxins are also a huge issue for the furniture industry, and also not just the environment, but also off-gassing into people's bloodstream. So also a health issue as well. And so, that goes towards the materials. It also goes towards manufacturing. And so we work with a manufacturer based in North Carolina, who's been an amazing partner, but we manufacture domestically, don't use glue in the upholstery process, so using staples. So also thinking about the manufacturing process as well, to limit the amount of glue used so that the materials can be taken apart when you're thinking about kind of the recycling process as well. And then also in terms of health. And then in terms of shipping, we ship in 100% recycled packaging without any plastic. And so that's obviously a component as well. And then lastly would be end of life solutions, which are the repair and resale programs that I mentioned earlier. So that's really, how we think about sustainability, is trying to tackle our impact at each and every stage, and thinking about it and comprehensively, which is what I mentioned earlier.
So I read an interview with you where you emphasize transparency, that it builds trust and business growth. Put you on the spot a little bit. What's bombed? You've set out a hard new path for our company. What hasn't worked? What are some things that have been a lot harder than you expected?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it is you don't know how easy or hard it's going to be until you try. And some things have worked out super well and been easier than we expected. And some things have just taken a lot longer. I'd say that, we're always trying to push the boundaries in terms of materials, for example, and work with a lot of innovative companies on that side of things to incorporate even more sustainable materials into our products. But sometimes that just takes time. And so, we get really excited and want to launch things right away, but it does take time to develop those things. And so we kind of have to understand that to some extent. And so that's an area that just has been a challenge that you have to get used to and get comfortable with the prototyping process, and understanding that if you're doing something that isn't available to the industry, that's going to take time, but at the same time is a great thing in terms of differentiating the company and setting ourselves up as a leader in that area.
So, Phantila, a bunch of the questions that we received feel like they're from aspiring entrepreneurs in this furniture space. And they ask more or less the question, yeah, but how do I make the money work? How do I make the business model work? Tell us about the basic of the business model, and is it premised on the idea that this is not actually saddling you with additional expenses, but actually in the short or medium or long term, going to be a more successful enterprise?
Yeah, I think that, a lot of work has to be done on the product side to make sure that you can get everything to a point, both in terms of cost and then retail price, that it works. I think what's been really encouraging for us is that a lot of the time, or what we found, is that it can very much work. It's just a matter of effort and doing that development to get it there. I would say that in terms of the business model itself, it actually does lend itself to, I'd say, even an even better model. For example, in terms of the repair program, that program is a win-win for both us and our customers. They get to extend the life of their products, and that's a convenience for them. But we are also selling component parts through that program. So we actually get to generate revenue off of that initial purchase as well. And so that's a win for us, both in terms of sustainability, but also as a company and driving additional revenue. Same with the resale program, that we facilitate that resale, the customer gets commission on that resale price, but we also get a commission on that resale price. And so in terms of the business model, that actually contributes to our sales as well. And so I think what's really encouraging for the next generation of businesses is that consumers nowadays really do care about sustainability, and oftentimes are even willing to pay a premium for sustainable products. And so I think that sets sustainable companies up, or companies looking to introduce programs like that or products that speak to that, up for a lot of success.
So you do see that dynamic. I mean, I've seen it in food, the new equation that you aren't surprised to pay more for a farm to table restaurant, and in other fields. You're feeling that in furniture that's focused on a younger, price sensitive demographic?
Yeah, for sure. I'd say that, this demographic so we're targeting kind of a semi-affordable price point. And so that primarily tends to be millennials, Gen Zs, as they age into the furniture buying age. But definitely, we do a lot of survey work and research around what's driving purchasing behavior with our customers, and sustainability is definitely actually the top driver according to our customers. Obviously, you have to take that with a grain of salt and still meet their values and demands in other areas, whether that's quality or design or convenience. But sustainability is definitely growing as a factor in terms of purchasing decisions.
Let me put you a little on the spot again. Tell us a little bit about the Phantila in this. Like, if I had interviewed a 7th grade Phantila, would you have imagined this is where you'd be? What connects you to this?
Not specifically furniture, I'd say, but I've always been, I'm actually from Thailand and I grew up there. And my mom ran eco lodges, so was always super interested in the intersection of, business and doing something that's low impact or sustainable. And so always knew I was going to be doing something at that intersection, just didn't realize it was going to be in furniture. But I've always loved furniture. I mean, I think the good thing about furniture is it has exposure to it in some way just by having a home. And so have always had an appreciation for that. So I'm happy, very happy I'm in the industry now.
And I know a bunch of people have asked, producing domestically, I think you make quite a bit of your furniture right in North Carolina. What about the economics of that?
Yeah, I mean, we produce all of our furniture in North Carolina currently, and that's really the strategy moving forward in terms of additional products that we're planning to launch, is to work with domestic manufacturers on that. I mean, we set our supply chain up and our manufacturing up to be domestic from, a sustainability standpoint, but from a business standpoint, that's actually worked out incredibly well for us in terms of, obviously during COVID is an anomalous, but during that whole period, there were tons of fluctuations in terms of both lead times and freight costs. And so we were able to avoid that and currently have a lead time of 2 to 3 weeks. Last year, our average lead time was 4.5 weeks. And so that actually served us incredibly well. And then it also allows us to operate on a made to order business. And so we can actually produce products in response to orders. And so not taking on inventory risk, putting capital into inventory, and then also from a sustainability standpoint, not creating product that is at risk of maybe not being sold. And so that's something that we've been incredibly happy with and are continuing down that path in the future.
Is the Eco Lodge still up and running, and can I go?
Yes, it is. It is. I can drop the link to it in the chat if anyone is interested in going to Thailand.
Right. So listen, I could easily keep interviewing you for another 2 hours. I'm going to push you off to the electronic side. We'll be back all together in about 20 minutes, and let me invite Conor from Hoek Home to the stage.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, Conor. So you co-founded and you co-head Hoek Home, which I saw it's a beautiful, sustainable furniture line that clicks together in seconds with no tools and lasts a lifetime. Hoek is helping to save the planet one milk jug at a time. If you're done with your Hoek furniture, send back the HDPE, which are the legs and the other parts made from recycled plastic, send them back to Hoek, and they'll ensure that the process begins again. Tell us about Hoek.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, you did a great intro there.
Can I get booked as a pitchman for?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you do a better job than I do. Yeah, so I think Brian and I founded or started Hoek about 1.5 years ago now, and it really came about as it was a COVID baby, I guess. We started another company called A5 Studio a number of years ago. It's design and fabrication, based out here in Red Hook in Brooklyn, and a lot of our work stopped during the pandemic, and we had this beautiful facility. We had a great team on board, so we started using that time to develop this furniture system, and it's really kind of grown from there. So I think we started off, it wasn't necessarily with a sustainable focus. It was more looking at the assembly process. And I'd moved into a new apartment and I was assembling a bunch of flat pack furniture, and I do this for a living. I'm an architect. I work with my hands for a living, so it should be a very simple process, but it took me all night. And really, that's where we started off. We're like, okay, there's got to be a simpler way here. And one of our employees, Sebastian, had been playing around with recycled HDPE, and we just noticed when we were milling it on the CNC machine the flexibility of it. But it behaved very much like a timber, but with slight more flexibility to it. So we started playing around with this idea of the flexible joint, and using the leg as a lever to click it into place. And, once we kind of prototyped through this after, a couple of months, we realized we had something pretty special. So we kind of reached out to a patent lawyer and to see if anything like this had been done before. And thankfully, there wasn't anything too similar. So that's really how it started. It's still, in its infancy, but the consumers are really responding well to the product. And I think when they get it in their hands, they're really surprised at the quality and the stability of it, and how easy it is to assemble. So that's how we started.
So just to get this right, your entire business is 18 months old?
Yeah, I think we did a Kickstarter in October 2020. That's when we launched. And then we fulfilled those orders, and that was a great learning experience. We've never built anything at scale before, because as I said before, our other business really does custom one-off builds. And then we used some of that capital that we developed during the Kickstarter campaign to launch our own D2C store. I think it was in July maybe of 2021.
Mm-hmm.
So we've been selling.
What is D2C?
Oh, sorry, direct to consumer, e-com. So we're not going through wholesale or brick and mortar stores. We just sell through our website online.
So in terms of going up the learning curve in terms of circularity, I want to throw three terms at you that I've seen you use. One is, we wanted to create a product that uses its materiality to the greatest possible extent while remaining friendly to the earth. So first, I'll throw all three together.
Okay.
What is materiality? And you said we want to have as much fun with each Hoek product. We want you to have as much fun with each Hoek product. What is fun? And is HDPE, which is made from recycled plastic, still a plastic when it's recycled and then you use it?
Well, I can't actually give 100% certain answer on that, but I believe so. That's a great question. I naturally assumed that it was just a reconstituted plastic. I think it's just shredded and heat treated back into a sheet. And you can do that up to 10 times without any loss of structural integrity.
Conor, Hoek makes a commitment, right? That if I buy the table and then I move apartments, it doesn't fit, I can send you back all the undergirding and the legs, and you're going to shred them and recycle them into new furniture.
Yeah, if we have a replacement program in place, so if a piece gets damaged, the consumer can send it back, and we'll get that recycled. Not at our facility here, because we don't have the infrastructure for that, but we get it recycled in the US, and we'll send out a replacement piece free of charge. So yeah, just to jump back to your original question on materiality and what we mean by that, I think for us, it's really like about understanding the materials that we're using and how to use them to their most to the understanding the properties of the material and how best to use that. So for us, when we initially started playing around with this material, HDPE, we'd never used it before, and we put it on the CNC machine and we started to cut it, and we realized, well, okay, this actually machines beautifully. So that's great to know. And then as we started to play around with cutting different dimensions, we noticed that it was rigid, but also it was flexible. So that really led us to explore this idea of a flexible joint. And I think it's really when we started to use that lever action, which is really what's kind of unique to us. And the ease of flexing it in to disassemble with your hand, and then using the weight of the leg to click it in, and it's a very, very rigid material. So for us, it was, it's about understanding HDPE as a material, how it machines, how the consumer uses it, looking at our locally sourced wood tops, how rigid are they, how light are they, and using the material in its, in its best format for.
Tell us about fun figuring prominently in your business model.
Yeah, I think it's important. What we're trying to do is make a piece of furniture that is going to last with you for a lifetime. But I mean, I think if I could go back to one moment, we made a coffee table as the first prototype, and it was a long coffee table, and the legs clicked into the underside, just as you see it now, although it's more developed. And you know, I got my wife to like film me carrying it in under my arm and then clicking it together, and it was like, you know, I carried in a surfboard or a, you know, a snowboard or something like that, and then clicked it together and flipped it over, and it's so satisfying, and it kind of like sparks joy to do that. And that was something that we didn't want to lose as we developed this company, because it's important to remember, you know, where you started off. It's as you grow and develop, it's an important a business, and it can get a little serious. But for us, like clicking that joint in and being able to hold the furniture under your arm like a surfboard or something is really fun, and it's something that we want to come across in the brand. That we're not this sterile and boring kind of furniture brand.
Okay. And I wish I didn't have to move on, but let me just throw one more question.
Sure. Yeah.
Be honest, like what's been tough about making the economics of this work?
For me, there's a one standout element, and that really is communicating to the consumer the quality of the product that they're going to get. I think there's an inherent association with the word recycled and particularly plastic. When you use it to the extent that we do, I think the consumer thought it was going to be cheap and lightweight and not sturdy. And we've had a real challenge, you know, communicating to people who've never had the product in their hands, just the actual quality and the stability of it. It's far, you know, outperforms most of the furniture on the market today. And once the consumer or the, you know, person gets the product in their hand, they're like, you can see they click it in. They're like, wow, that's like, it's really crazy. It's so effective. So that's been tough. I think it's like a marketing challenge for us to say like, yes, it is recycled plastic, but it's extremely stable and easy to use and very, it's going to last a long time. So I think that's been our biggest challenge.
Yeah. You mean changing a whole mentality around reclaimed, recycled equals
Exactly.
Mediocre quality.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
All right. Thank you so much. I'm going to answer this question. Someone says to you, does this mean your fully assembled furniture can be disassembled at moving time? I think if I have learned to be a Hoek devotee, there is no assembled furniture. It's all disassembled and then assembled and then can be unassembled. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's just as easy to disassemble. I think that's like part of our circular design focus, is that you can take this apart in seconds and bring it with you when you move. And you know, all of our pieces flat pack to under 2 inches. So it's like they're lightweight and easy to move around. Or you can slide it under your couch, or each piece even comes with a wall cleat, so you can hang it on your wall. So
all right.
it's like assembly and disassembly.
See you in 10 minutes, and let's talk to Ilyse.
Great.
Thank you so much, Conor. So
Ilyse,
you are president and chief operating officer of Feather, and Feather Furniture fits the way we live today. That's helping a new generation of renters create homes that they love, even when life is in motion. Feather is a circular approach to furniture grounded in rental, reuse, and refurbishment. And you emphasize convenience, freedom, and flexibility. Tell us all about that.
Yes, hi. It's so good to be here, Michael. And I'm always really happy for the opportunity to talk about Feather. So maybe just to the origin story, Feather was founded back in 2017 by Jay Reno, and Jay had lived in a bunch of different apartments in New York, as I know many of us have. I probably lived in 7 apartments in the time that I lived in New York. And every time he moved, he found that it was a real challenge to figure out what to do with the furniture that just didn't fit that next space. So whether that was the shape, the size, the style. And he was also really quick to realize, he had gotten his master's in environmental science at Columbia, that there's a major environmental challenge related to furniture. So obviously, you know this, I'm sure everybody attending this panel knows this, but there's about 20 billion pounds of furniture that are thrown away every year. It's 7% of landfill waste, and it's second only to food in the US. And part of that, of course, is because furniture is by definition big and bulky. But part of it is just that people are trained to think of fast furniture as something that, you know, you buy, you use it for as long as you need it, and then it can be very challenging to get rid of, and often makes its way to the landfill. So we're trying to solve that, as you mentioned, for a new generation, primarily of renters. So folks who are primarily renting their apartments and rent their furniture for just as long as they need it, because their lifestyles change. And so, you know, even pre-pandemic, whether that was moving in or out with a roommate, moving across the country, moving in with a partner, taking a sabbatical, our lives were constantly changing. I think that's even more true since the pandemic. I actually myself moved out of New York, bopped around to different places for a year and landed in Ann Arbor, Michigan, of all places. And I think I'm not atypical in that sense. So we're realizing that we need more convenience and flexibility, and we want those products in a way that really is sustainable for the environment. And then as Feather has grown, not just the consumer side of the house, we serve consumers in New York, San Francisco, Los Angeles, the majority of the state of Texas and Washington, DC metro. We also serve businesses across the country because the way that we're working has changed, and folks in their office are also looking for more flexibility, convenience, and to do so in a sustainable way.
And so has that led, I understand that's led to some new partnerships.
Yes, we launched an exclusive partnership with WeWork in October 2021. And the way that that works is that customers who are going into the office, and, you know, speaking again for myself, we at Feather went remote really early on in the pandemic. But we and many other businesses are now trying to figure out, what does that mean to have some sort of hybrid work, right? As much as I'm so thrilled to be doing this from my apartment, I wish I was there in person with people. And I think that a lot of us are craving that. And so co-working has actually seen a really big boon during this time, rather than taking on long-term leases because companies don't necessarily know what's next. They're looking to sort of go in, whether it's 1 day a week, 5 days a week, whatever, and give their employees a space to get together. When people go into the office, they don't just want a sea of desks. If they're going to just sit heads down at a desk, they can do that at home. And so they want spaces for collaboration, brainstorming, all of those types of things. And now through this partnership, customers know WeWork can really just pick out everything they want. Just like we do for consumers in their home, we deliver and assemble it, you pay monthly. And then when the customer is done using it, if their needs in their office change, we refurbish and put those items back out on their next life.
So is it too dramatic to say, in terms of principles of circularity, that what Feather is doing almost reconceptualizes furniture away from its productness to its service? Did I capture that?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And we actually use the term, you know, I'm sure everyone's heard of SaaS, software as a service. We're furniture as a service and FaaS. And we definitely do think of it that way. We think of furniture as being something that doesn't necessarily need to be your forever furniture. There's obviously pieces that you do want to have forever and that will sort of grow with you. But other pieces of furniture can just potentially be used for whatever the use case is for now, for the next year. And then we ensure that it's responsibly refurbished and put out for the next individual's need.
So Fei Long, one of our participants, asks, what are some modern solutions to furniture logistics challenges, large and bulky item delivery, pickup, returns, and your Feather is in the deep water of that?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think that a lot of companies think of logistics as just part of the operations, but for us, our supply chain and the logistics, sort of how we get the product to our customers, is really at the core of what we do. We have proprietary technology that we built early on that really enables us to track every single asset that we have through its entire life cycle. So the technology side of it definitely powers our business. And then it's all about, you know, building systems for scale. So we have both markets where we own the last mile, and then we also partner with 3PLs across the country, third-party logistics providers that really enable us to, from a cost-effective manner, service folks all over the country without necessarily investing in all of our own infrastructure. Because to the panelist question, furniture it's big, it's heavy, it's cumbersome. And so that is something that we are just continuing to chip away at bit by bit over time.
So Ilyse, let me pile two questions on top of each other. One is, Feather has a commitment to offsetting carbon emissions in domestic operations. How does that work? And congratulations, I know the company has been raising a lot of capital for expansion. What are the biggest challenges?
Yes, so the carbon
Yes.
piece. We offset our carbon footprint through a partnership with Pachama. And so they help us through that partnership really offset any carbon that we emit and ensure that we are carbon neutral in all of our deliveries. We also think a lot about the environmental impact through furniture kept out of landfills. So it's a little bit of a different way of looking at the same question. But really, if you think back to that first slide that you had of that one-way supply chain of furniture, in many ways going from a factory to someone's home or office into a landfill, that circularity we really think about in terms of pounds of furniture kept out of the landfill. So every time we redeploy an asset, we're really keeping something that otherwise might have gone on that one-way path into a landfill out and on its next life.
Yeah. Let me interrupt you before you get to the very second question I asked you. The opportunity to reduce waste is what this redesign week is the core, which is part of Refashion Week, is fundamentally about, as hosted by the Sanitation Foundation and Donate NYC, is about achieving a vision of a zero waste city. And we're exploring 50 different dimensions of new models of circular businesses, but this relationship to fundamentally, how does it contribute to vastly decreased waste, is one of the core questions that sparked this whole series.
Yeah, it's critical to what we do. And so like some of the other folks on this panel, we really are designing our product to ensure that it is built to last, that we can refurbish it, that we're using the right types of materials that aren't effectively going to end up just being part of fast furniture or disposed in the first place, whether it's hard woods, whether it is fabrics with a coating that enables them to have, performance inherent in the fabric and less likely to have that wine that you still soak up into the fabric and instead really extend the lifetime. We use slip covers so that we can sort of stay on top of trends, but at the same time ensure that the underlying product itself can both have like a cool cheetah print this season and then be released on its next turn in red next season.
How do you help people get over the, renting furniture is not a brand new idea. There's at least I think of an association with, I'm going to rent furniture, it's going to come stained, or it's just chairs for an auditorium. How do you overcome that consumer psychology that it's actually great furniture?
Yeah, so like Conor said, we are trying to educate consumers to make a totally different choice with an asset class that's seen pretty little innovation since the dawn of the internet. And so really educating them on the quality. I think that you see it in our reviews, you see it in sort of the way that our customers keep coming back to us. We also partner with certain brands that I think exemplify quality, like Floyd, like Herman Miller. And so also partnering with companies like that who also are just known for high quality, long lasting product sort of helps cement that idea with customers. And I do want to quickly come back to your question about fundraising, because we are a venture-backed company, and that is something that I'm sure a lot of folks wonder about. We have been successful, I think, because a lot of our investors really believe that you can do well and do good at the same time. And the ESG, core of our mission, our desire to change people's relationship with material goods for a healthier and happier planet.
Explain ESG.
Environmental. We have an environmental core to our mission, right? The focus on the environment being core to the business and not just an afterthought is something that resonates with our investors. Our Series B lead Cobalt Capital, our Series A lead Spark, and all of the investors from the early days, we have some phenomenal partners in Bain, Kleiner Perkins, NEA, and they all really understood out of the gate, this is something that really can really do well and do good at the same time. And I think that there's more and more businesses and more investors who are particularly excited about that today.
That's great. I'm going to pick right up on that, on the whole idea of how do we take this all to a different scale. Right now, August, can you put us all together? So we got, welcome back, the two of you. We got a bunch of questions. There's like 5 of them, but they all group around the same interest area, around whole industry change. Leah in Brooklyn, what would it take for the whole furniture industry to change in these ways? From Brina, also in Brooklyn, what is the state of the sustainable furniture industry? Tanu asks, what's the future of the furniture industry? Pamela in the Bronx wants to know what progress are furniture companies and brands making and moving towards a more sustainable future. And Emma in Pasadena, California wants to know, how can we make sustainability mass market? Who wants to take that first? All about this moving from being the innovators somewhat still on the sideline to being the mainstream of furniture.
I have one quick thought to kick it off, which is I think that we need to see the biggest players in the industry also really make these shifts. IKEA just last week announced that they are going to be taking back product at I think it's 38 stores across the US and ensuring that that product is put back out in another life. They've spoken about their desire to be fully circular by 2030. And so as we see companies like IKEA really making these types of commitments, I think that that will really force the rest of the industry to follow suit.
Others on that? What
Yeah,
about?
I'd say that, I mean, in the same way that sustainability applies to so many different things, there are so many different areas that will require innovation and new businesses to actually change the industry as a whole. I think that one area that's really exciting that, as a company that's working with manufacturers and suppliers to produce products, that I'm super excited about is just innovation in the materials world as well. And I think a lot of really exciting things are happening there that companies are starting to develop, and we are developing in conjunction with different suppliers to incorporate into our products. And then also, I think that one thing that the industry has to think about in terms of, this applies to multiple industries, but on the material front, not just thinking about the initial source of the material, but also what can be done at the end in terms of thinking about that closed loop system. And so, if you're using a recycled material, are you mixing that with a natural material? And then if you're thinking about at the end of life, can those two things be separated and then recycled? Because ultimately, maybe it's a synthetic material that's recycled that can then be recycled again. And if you mix that with a natural material, maybe it can't. So I think it's both developing the materials themselves that are sustainable, but then also developing them with reuse or closed loop systems in mind. But I think from my position, seeing a lot of really exciting things happen in that area, as well as business model solutions and things like that.
Phantila, you gave me the perfect segue into the glossary that's coming out. What do you mean by closed loop? What do you mean by end of life?
So in terms of closed loop, thinking about whether the materials can either biodegrade and go back into the earth, or if they can be reused again. And so closing the loop, instead of sending materials to landfills, actually allowing it to be regenerated or reused. And then end of life is thinking about, what happens when a furniture piece or any product really needs to be recycled or thrown away. Can it be taken apart? And thinking about solutions for that side of things, not just the purchasing side.
Right. So that for everyone, the traditional way of thinking of things is that a company sells you a product and that's the end of their responsibility for it. This is the circular furniture way of thinking extends, or a concept called extended producer responsibility, completely makes the ideas to make it into that loop, that it's not only about its most useful life, but what happens if you no longer need it or if it's worn out. How does the company retain a role in keep getting it back somewhere besides a landfill? Let me switch topics just because we're rolling here. Conor, I'm going to start with you. This is back to the economics part. 3 questions. Joel in Trinidad and Tobago has tuned in. What are the keys to success with a circular furniture business model? Elaine in Ireland, not I didn't plant this one. How do you make circularity financially viable? And Katie, tuning in from Corralville, Iowa, how do you manage to stay competitive? So you see, there's a lot of vista out here that makes it as it's a huge uphill climb that your businesses would even be able to cut it. I get the sense you see this in a very different way.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's really going back to like educating the consumer that this is a better product, and to see the whole life cycle of the product. So that's been the major challenge for us. And then, you know, as I said, getting the product into the consumer's hands, they get it. They understand, like, okay, maybe this is a little bit more than IKEA, but over the life cycle of the product, it's a far better investment. It's a superior product. So that, you know, I think that's been a huge challenge for us. And then, sorry, could you repeat the second question? How do you stay competitive? Or?
Yeah, how do you stay competitive?
Yeah. So for us, I mean, everything is designed and made in-house here in Brooklyn. So, you know, we really can't compete with the large offshore factories, but we do our best to, you know, have reasonable margins for the company, but have it as an affordable product as possible. And that's really one of the cores of our mission. So yes, we do have to maintain margins to have a successful business, but we're not pricing it at a point where it's inaccessible to most people. We really want the product to be accessible. And I think if that is the case, then, you know, the business model should be successful for sure.
Yeah, and quickly, I'll ask the same question of the three of you. Conor, give us one indicator to help us understand the scale of Hoek today. What size are you operating at as a business?
So we have 10 people. We have a 10,000 square foot facility here in Red Hook, out on the pier in Brooklyn, New York. We have 10 people working here. We started in June. Are we talking sales numbers or?
No, just that indicator is great. 10 employees, 10,000 square feet. Because I'm going to move on. Ilyse,
Sure.
What about the big economics questions? How does this make for a competitive business model? And give us an indication of Feather's scale.
Yeah, so today we have about 100 employees. That includes about 35 folks on our ground team, so working in our fulfillment centers and making deliveries. And we service most of the US. On the consumer side of the house, about 10 cities, and then on the B2B side, pretty much the whole US. And in terms of making the economics work, you know, rental business, to your point earlier, Michael, is something that has been around for a long time. It's a proven business model. Court, which is the largest furniture rental company in the US, is owned by Berkshire Hathaway, and they are known for really investing in good businesses. But it is a business that really takes time and scale to make the economics work out of the gate. You can imagine that if you just sell a sofa for $1,000 versus renting it at $39 a month, it's going to take longer to really get to the point where this is a sort of self-sustaining business from a cash flow perspective. But over time, it's something that really works for the customer, for us, and for the planet.
Mm-hmm. All right, Phantila, the same pair of questions?
Yeah, I would say that in terms of our size right now, our team is relatively small. We're about 5 people, but we work with a lot of external partners as well. So we work at the manufacturer in North Carolina and sell throughout the US as well. In terms of the business model, I think I talked about it a little bit during our initial interview, but just creating a business model where the economics work for both our customers and ourselves through those different programs, while also keeping reasonable margins to try to make the product as accessible as possible. That's definitely, to your point, Conor, something that we definitely balance a lot with, especially given that our demographic is one that is, it's not a super high-end demographic. It's still within that semi-affordable price point, and trying to make it accessible to that group of people.
You guys know I'll be looking for the Feather Sabai Hoek collaboration within 18 months. All right. Something I'm going to squeeze in. There's one last really important cluster of questions that have come in. By the way, for Christina, Leah, Suzanne, and others who have sent in questions that are very specific to one company, we will be sure to forward those questions to you and to each of our panelists where it fits, so that we're just tackling some of the larger systemic questions. This really has to do with policy, guys. This is about 3 questions that have come in. What policies would make cities more effective in advancing reuse and the reuse movement? That's from Adriana in Pittsburgh. How does what you're doing connect to New York City's broader approaches and policies at large? From Suzanne here in Brooklyn. And can public policy and legislation help reduce the use of energy by manufacturing, reduce carbon emissions coming in from Amy in Illinois, in Oak Park. How can public policy, how can government play a role in fostering this, the expansion of this way of doing business in furniture?
I think you know, the main way that they can have an influence is some sort of taxing on, you know, non-sustainable products and you know, throwing those products out. I think that if the consumer feels it at, you know, in their pocket, then that's going to have a major shift. Yeah, I think that would be like one aspect for sure.
Great. One of the others?
I think that, I mean, California has done a great job in terms of like chemical regulation. And so making sure that there's visibility around the actual chemicals that are in products that could potentially be harmful to people. I think along the lines of what Conor is saying in terms of, you know, financial support, I would say that there's a lot of research and work that needs to be done in terms of like developing, whether it's materials or programs to create a sustainable or a closed loop furniture industry. And so whether that's grants for research to develop those materials, I think that could be super helpful in terms of manufacturing. I know like a lot of manufacturers would like to be more sustainable. They don't really have the funds a lot of the times to make that transition. And so potentially grants or funds to help manufacturers make that transition, install more renewable energy resources, or to create programs for even just taking care of the waste that they generate or minimizing that waste, even just support to help, I think, advise a lot of manufacturers because they don't have the time or money to put into actually doing the research around what other practices they can implement.
Yeah. Phantila, you speak to a really essential point that I hope we get to address in a future webinar. The three of you represent youngish companies that from the moment you started, circular principles were core to the mission and the DNA. Out there, the vast bulk of furniture being produced is longstanding heritage, older companies that to make this, do things that way, it would represent a gigantic transition. And that's who we want to feature on an upcoming webinar is leaders of large furniture companies that are 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, in some cases 70, 80 years old, that are working earnestly. Ilyse gave one example around IKEA to make the transition. That's for a future festival. Ilyse, you want to give last word?
I think that they captured pretty much all of the policy thoughts that I would have shared. One thing that's specific to New York City that I'll just add is that so many people don't have a car. And so getting rid of your furniture items can be especially onerous. And that's why we see so much of that product on the street. We're obviously trying to solve that a bit in the private sector by being able to pick those items up and refurbish them and redeploy them. I'm not sure if it's really practical for the city to offer something along those lines, but there's not a whole lot in the way of disincentives of just putting your items on the street, and it's really hard to find something else to do with them more often than not. So,
right. Once again, you've given me the perfect segue to our closing, which is if you'd like to hear more about inspiring leaders and change makers, we have 2 other webinars as part of Redesign Week. And tomorrow afternoon at 5 p.m., you ready, Ilyse? It's called Alternatives to the Curb, How Real New Yorkers Redecorate and Keep Furniture Out of Landfills. So it is ways to not have to put it on the curb. That's tomorrow, Thursday, April 7th at 5. And then the other webinar was yesterday. You can go to our website. Soon you'll be able to get access to the video. And it was entitled Equity Can't Be an Add-on, a conversation about design, waste, and justice, particular to the furniture and design world. And in the upcoming Circular City Week, which starts May 2nd, we're also going to have 3 webinars, which are all at this nexus of furniture, sustainability, and circularity. Click on the links in the chat if you want to know more about that. Please fill out the feedback forms because we really want your help in improving, continually improving our product, which is great webinars. And last but not least, thank you again to the Refashion Week crew at the Sanitation Foundation and to Donate NYC for hosting this entire week, making this festival possible. And thank you to my colleagues, Mackenzie Pitt and August Rust, on the Mebel team for behind the scenes support. All of this would have come crashing down if it were up to me and left in my hands. And thank you all for joining us today. See you soon. Thank you, Phantila. Thank you, Conor. Thank you, Ilyse.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.